All right. I'm gonna get started. I'm trying to figure out in Zoom some of the things I've switched around. So as we get going, if I pause for a second, that is why. But first, I want to say welcome. Welcome again to day 2 of the 3-day target challenge, where we are going to discuss aim. But first, again, I want to start off with a prayer. So, dear Lord, I just pray that you would give me the words to speak and only the words that you have me to speak. But also, Lord, if anybody is listening to this, is on here, let them hear the words that you have them to hear in order for them to be able to live a life closer to you and more on purpose for what you have for them. And in the mighty name of Jesus, amen. All right, here we go. So, again, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here. We're going to go over just a moment of yesterday. Um, Yesterday, we went over the awareness portion of the targets, and in that awareness portion is where are you now? And then where do you want to go? The where are you now? You sit down, you take a couple minutes, you pull out your journal, and you just write down what is your emotional level? Where are you at? Where are you financially? Where are you spiritually, physically? What is going on right now? And able to really get basically bare your soul to yourself. Get honest with yourself about where you are. And that will allow you to be able to make some wise decisions moving forward. Ooh, stopped and started. All right. Um, and the who do you want to be? And whenever that happens and we're able to figure all those things out in our faith, our family, our fitness, and our finances, then we're able to determine who that person is, and we start being that person now. Because it doesn't take $1 million to be the person that has $1 million. Um, who do you have to be? And then today we are going to work on aim. And today, the aim is the target you want to hit. Bible states that faith as small as a mustard seed, that will end up growing into the biggest plant in the garden. And a lot of people go, okay, well then if I just have the faith of a mustard seed, that's all I need. But if you look at it, then grows. And I know that whenever you start making targets, if you keep them small and you start hitting those targets, your faith in yourself and your faith in God to be able to hit bigger targets starts to grow. It's kind of like in chiropractic when make sure that nobody's sitting here. Yep. Uh in chiropractic when you don't even necessarily know what you're doing, but you see that first patient and they get better. Well, then you start building some faith. And then you see somebody else that has a little bit more than just like a little mid back pain, and somebody that has sciatica, and people start getting better and better and better, and your faith in what you're doing continues to grow. Um, in sales, I think the hardest thing is to go out and try to sell like a $10,000 product. But if you go out and sell a piece of bubble gum and you're like, okay, I could do that. And then you sell a couple of things on Facebook Marketplace, and you're like, okay, it's starting to make sense now. And then you start building that faith in what you're able to do. You start building that muscle. Same thing, I feel like whenever it comes to faith in the targets that we are trying to reach. Whenever we have that faith, we're starting to grow the faith. We're starting to reach higher and higher targets and starting to be that person that we are wanting to be. And we're also starting to hit more targets as we move forward. So I'm going to go back to a little bit of a hunting metaphor where I'm going to talk about how when you are aiming, the timing doesn't matter. Some people, they have during deer, let's just say deer season, they have a rifle. And so whenever a deer comes out, they can see that thing from 100, 150 yards and they know how to aim to be able to hit it. Other people archery hunt. So you want to be within, 30, 40 yards for an accurate shot. And it takes a little bit more time and finesse most of the time in order to get to that range. So the timing itself doesn't matter. I say it's usually as quickly and efficiently as possible without exploding yourself. Um, and sometimes in hunting, you have trappers that set it and forget it and come back and they've caught their prey, their target that they were looking for. So sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. If you have competition shooters in, uh, I guess, guns, I don't even know what it's called, competition. Um, but they go target, 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 target. It's a speed thing. As fast as you can hit, one target goes to the next target, goes to the next target. It's almost like as fast as they can start aiming, that's how fast they're hitting the targets. Other times, if you've ever seen a sniper, they're slow and methodical and they measure everything and they are constantly judging the wind and judging their angles and approaches and windage until they're able to dial it in, and then they make one single shot and it goes forever until it finally hits the target. So there's all different ways of setting targets. I'm kind of ADHD. I like hitting lots of targets because it helps me have confidence, keep that confidence, and be able to keep moving forward. There's other people that are a lot more, I guess, calm almost, in that they want to set one target and they just want to slowly and methodically move towards that target. But either way, uh, being able to set these targets is what's going to really help. So, some people call them, if it's the fast targets, like checklists, where you get boom, 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 boom. You keep hitting these targets, and then those targets are ultimately going to lead to that final standard that you're going to live by. Other people, it's just like that standard is there, and this is how we're going to hit it. Um, but sometimes also with these targets, going back to the shooting analogy, um, for like a long range target, you have to aim high. You realize that you're aiming high. Say it's not like an artificial lofty goal that you know that you're never going to hit. You're actually aiming for this target and you're going, okay, I know that I need to shoot over the target where it's appearing, and that is going to eventually come back down and we're going to be spot on. So there's all different ways of doing it. Like I said, I like the fast targets. The faster I can hit a target and move on to the next one, really allows that faith to grow, because the big targets start to get hit faster, and then you can keep going bigger and bigger and bigger if you want, or however you want to do it. If you just want, you know what, this year I want to grow 5% compared to last year, because I know a lot of these goal settings, it's like, you want to double your practice. I want to 10x my business. That's going to break your systems, really. Let's be honest. We are not really designed for that kind of growth in most of our businesses. If you have a business where you can do that, absolutely great. You could do something like that when you increase your revenue or increase your prices and things like that. That's definitely a good target to reach. Is like, this is by the end of 2026. My target is to be at a whatever it is, XYZ price range. Perfect. But if it's, I want to triple my practice next year, well, are you ready for the income? Are you ready for the influx of patients? Are you ready for the headaches, the bookkeeping, the staffing, all those things? Are you ready for all that to occur in order for that to happen? Or do you have, okay, I want to do 5% month over month, or every 6 weeks I want to grow by 10%. That's still going to give you a increase, but you're going to be able to kind of grow at a more steady rate. It's everybody's thoughts and processes are different. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Um, I want to give an analogy. I gave one yesterday about setting sail. How Columbus started off in Spain. He thought he made it to the West Indies and he ended up in America. South America, Central America. But sometimes that aim is off because if you sit there and you aim directly at it, at your target, and then you don't course correct over the course of the year, then you're going to be way off course. There's, again, if we're going back to the boat scenario, there's wind, there's current, there's storms, there's reefs, there's all sorts of factors that occur whenever you launch. So you're going to launch in the best direction possible, but we are going to course correct and change those targets in order for us to move forward. It's kind of like if you ever been on a boat in a lake or on the ocean, close to the shore, they have buoys. Those buoys help direct where you're going to go. Those are different targets that you're trying to hit in order to hit that final standard, that final end zone. Um, and so whenever we're setting these targets, we want to think of all the hurdles that can arise as we're heading towards a target. So I guess I go crazy with it because my mind realizes that it's not going to be as bad as I can make it out to be. Um, but I get crazy in these thoughts and ideas. It's like, well, what if aliens come and abduct us on the way? Or what if the bank system collapses? Maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds. But what happens if all of a sudden uh, here in the United States, all the churches have to close for some reason or another? Well, then where does the faith go and faith targets? And one of my targets, is make it to the church as often as possible. Um, and so, like, come up with these crazy thoughts and these processes. Like, well, what if I'm walking down the street ready heading towards the gym and somebody comes up and lassos me and drags me down the road? Probably not going to happen, but as crazy as my mind can go, that helps calm some of that stress and calm some of those nerves that can happen whenever I go, wow, that's a really big target that I'm reaching for. Um, and so really figure out what's the worst case scenario, and that'll help calm your mind as to what can happen. Another example is I not doing too many of these, but whenever I met my wife, I had gone on so many dates, said yes to so many people, just trying to find somebody that I could spend my life with, somebody that I enjoyed spending time with. And I had gotten to the place where, you know what, going back to worst case scenario, I had my goal, I had my target, and it's crazy as it sounds, is my wife hits every single one of the things that I had desired and I had prayed for, as far as the target and the standards goes. But before I met her, I was looking all over the place trying to hit that target. And eventually I sat down, I said, you know what? God, it's all in your hands. I am going to stop trying to force something. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I end up and stay single for the rest of my life. And then what's the second worst thing? Well, that's actually not the worst thing. The worst thing is finding the wrong person and then being miserable for the rest of my life. Second would be staying single for the rest of my life because that would make me miserable, the kind of guy I am. And so I said, you know what, God, I'm going to have faith that I'm going to be able to get somebody. You're going to bring somebody into my life, and that I don't know when or where, but you know what? I'm done trying to force it on my own. And that's where the faith comes in. We're going to talk about a little bit more tomorrow, because that's where that stress can really start to decrease in our lives, is whenever we start having more faith and less force. But whenever I sat down and did that, and within 2 weeks, a patient of mine said, "Hey, my daughter's teacher, I don't know a whole lot about her, but she's cute, and I think she's single, and I was wondering if you would be interested in talking to her." And I was like, "Okay, here we go again." But you know what? It's not something that I was trying to force or chase. So I said, "Sure." And my wife and I met at a Mexican restaurant, and I've talked to her every day since 12, 13 years ago. And it's been an amazing ride. But as soon as I met her, I knew that this was the one I wanted to marry And I would have never been able to tell you that before, just like this feeling that I had. And that's because I had set my aim, I set the target, and then I let God and the faith as part of the action steps, that faith arise in order to help it get accomplished. So these targets, like I said, they could be as small or as big as they can as you want. And I really feel like that is determined by how much faith you have in God and your ability and the ability to be able to reach those things. If you don't feel like you have faith, you don't feel like you're going to be able to do it, then I would say let's back off, get a smaller bit of a target in order for us to really be able to work and flex and mature that faith and that ability to grow and hit those targets. So that's it. To figure out the four areas, your faith, your family, your fitness, and your finances. Figure out targets for each one of those. They could be big targets if it's something that, you're pretty strong in and you kind of have it going on, you kind of have it figured out, then, you can make a big target. But if it's something that you're like, you know what, I haven't really met any goals, I'm very depressed and discouraged by this, let's make some smaller targets as to what you want and start having the faith to be able to grow that faith muscle and that plant into blooming into something. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow in the action steps. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and I'll talk to you later. All right. Be blessed.